Let's bring in Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Missouri Congressman Jason Smith. Congressman, always a pleasure to see you. Do you think that Joe Biden keeps this going and pardons additional people, say his brother Jim Biden, anybody else who might be implicated in the Biden family scheme, for lack of a better phrase?
Why wouldn't he? He has been very consistent about taking care of the family business. He took care of his son. Why won't he take care of his brother? What we have discovered with the IRS whistleblowers when they came forward to the Ways and Means Committee has been astonishing. And it is quite disturbing that President Biden, who said in June that he would not pardon his son, and then he did it last night. And you know what's even worse? The fact that in the pardon, it is the most broad pardon since Watergate. That is what's really disturbing. He's even pardoning for years of 2014 and 15, which is when Hunter Biden got on Burisma, which is when the statute of limitations expired under the Biden Justice Department of the most egregious crimes.
Congressman, is the broadness of it what tells you that this pardon was as much potentially about Joe Biden as it is about Hunter Biden?
It's about both, without a doubt. There's no question that Joe Biden was involved in the Biden family scheme where they were selling his brand all over the world for millions of dollars. We saw numerous documents that was provided by the IRS whistleblower that prove that. We saw millions of dollars going into multiple different LLCs, passing money through one entity to another, that ultimately money did go to Joe Biden. He said they were loans that he was paying back, but there was no documentations of any loans.
Congressman, does Joe Biden need to pardon himself, given what you've seen? Now, that would be an overt admission of guilt, but again, does it end with pardons of Hunter and perhaps his brother, or is it possible that the President of the United States has to pardon himself?
I wouldn't be surprised that if he tried to pardon himself. I would say that he was very concerned with those early years, 2014, 15, 16, and 17. We also saw on video where Vice President Biden said that he would withhold $1 billion until the Ukrainians got rid of the prosecutor that was prosecuting the company that his son Hunter served on the board and was receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars from, Burisma. I think that all of this just is not smelling very well.
I want to ask you about the GOP's 100-day agenda. You're the tax guy. Tax cuts are going to be top of that 100-day agenda. Now, you're already seeing the pushback from the left on this when it's all about fair share. If the tax cuts get extended, then the rich won't pay their fair share. But, of course, when you look at the data, Congressman, what you find, in fact, is the rich pay way more than their fair share when it comes to income tax. But that's the fight you're going to have. How do you line up for this fight? How do you win this fight for Trump?
I'll tell you right now, we win this by delivering for working class Americans, small businesses, and family farmers. If Congress does nothing, every single American will face a tax increase by the end of the year. Every individual rate will go up. The child tax credit, which is something that helps a lot of working families, will be slashed in half. It will go from $2,000 to $1,000. The standard deduction, which 91% of Americans use to file their taxes, that gets slashed in half. These are tax cuts for real working Americans, and I would hope to think that the Democrats would not want those taxes to increase on working class Americans, small businesses, and farmers.
Well, I'm going to hold your feet to some fire. So let's take a look at these numbers that Brian was just talking about. The top 1% pay more than 40% of the taxes. That is about 2 times more in taxes than their share of income. 40.4%. The bottom 50% of taxpayers only pay 3% of taxes. And that does not actually, it overstates the actual income tax burden. And the Wall Street Journal wrote about this, Congressman, because refundable credits paid by those with no tax liability are treated as spending and are not reflected in this IRS data that we're showing. So let's talk about fair share and broadening the base in tax lingo and making the bottom 50% of individuals actually pay in more. Is that ever a possibility in what you'll be working on?
You know, it's interesting. You hear the Democrats all the time to say that the billionaires and the millionaires need to pay their fair share. What is the fair share? We've been trying to find this out for years. They've not been able to tell us what their fair share is. Do you know if you take every dollar from every billionaire in the United States, it could not even fund government for 8 months? Couldn't fund government for 8 months. That tells you that we don't have a revenue problem in our country. We have a spending problem. That's truly what it is. But broadening the base is something that I think that the majority of Americans would want. You would want to broaden the base so everyone has a share in it and share in the game, because we like our roads, we like our bridges, we like our education, we like our military. It has to be funded.
Well, I tell you, I mean, you talk about lies in this last administration. Of course, we're talking about pardons today, but nobody's going to pay higher taxes under $400,000 over the past 4 years has been one of the greatest economic lies perpetrated in America. And, you know, you look at the tax code, this isn't just about lower taxes. It's about an economy that doesn't tax people in hidden ways like inflation as well, Congressman. It's about spending and it's about taxes. All of that has to be part of the 100-day plan. Your last thought on this?
I'll tell you, the people who have had struggled the most over the last 4 years are people who are making less than $400,000 a year, because they saw an inflation tax of 20.5% hit them. And that has made it more difficult for them to put food on their table, clothes on their backs, and gasoline in their cars. And it was because of the one Democrat party spending spree of $10 trillion they did in the first 2 years of President Biden's administration.
Congressman, thank you so much. Congressman Jason Smith.